David's climb. The unseen power of sticking with it. David was a dreamer. He dreamt of traveling the world, exploring ancient ruins, and chatting effortlessly with locals in bustling markets. But his biggest dream, the one that felt both exciting and terrifying, was to speak English fluently. He'd signed up for classes, bought shiny new textbooks, and even labeled every item in his kitchen with its English name. His initial enthusiasm was enormous. "This is it," he'd tell himself. "I'm going to master English." He started with the basics: hello, how are you, and simple grammar rules. For the first few weeks, everything felt great. He was learning new words daily, understanding simple sentences, and his teachers praised his dedication. He felt like he was making incredible progress, climbing a steep but manageable hill. The wall of frustration. But then, the hill turned into a mountain. After about 6 months, David hit a wall. He understood the grammar rules, he could read newspaper articles, with some effort, and he knew a decent amount of vocabulary. But when he tried to watch an English movie without subtitles, it was a blur of fast, mumbled sounds. When he tried to talk to a native speaker, his mind went blank, his tongue felt heavy, and simple sentences turned into a tangled mess of broken words. He'd open his mouth, hesitate, and then usually just point or give a short, awkward answer. "I just can't seem to hear anything properly," he'd complain to himself. "And when I try to speak, nothing comes out. It's like my brain knows the English, but my mouth and ears don't." Frustration began to replace enthusiasm. He started skipping his online language exchange calls. His textbooks gathered dust. He felt like he wasn't improving anymore, no matter how hard he tried. The initial excitement was gone, replaced by a heavy feeling of defeat. "Maybe I'm just not good at languages," he thought. "Maybe it's too late for me." This was the moment many learners give up. This was the moment perseverance was truly tested. The whisper of persistence. One evening, staring at his untouched English textbook, David remembered why he started. The image of those ancient ruins, the bustling markets, the effortless conversations. Was he going to let a few months of difficulty stop him from a lifelong dream? A quiet voice inside him said, "No. Not yet. Not like this." He decided to try a different approach. He realized his problem wasn't a lack of talent, but a lack of consistent, smart practice and the right mindset. Tip 1. The small steps, every day. Consistency is key. David understood that long, tiring study sessions were not working. He decided to do something small, but every single day. 15-minute rule. He promised himself just 15 minutes of English every day, no matter what. Some days, it was listening to a short podcast. Other days, it was reading a short article. If he had more time, great, but 15 minutes was the minimum. Why it works. David soon found that these small daily efforts built up. His brain stayed warm for English. He wasn't trying to cram everything in at once. This consistency was a game changer. It proved that little drops of water can eventually wear away a stone. Tip 2. Attacking listening. The ear training. His listening problem was still huge. He couldn't understand fast talkers or different accents. Start easy, build up. Instead of jumping into complex news broadcasts, he started with podcasts made for English learners. They speak slower, use simpler words, and often have transcripts. Practical use. David found a podcast called English for Everyday Life. He'd listen to one episode during his morning coffee. Listen for the gist first. He stopped trying to understand every single word. His new goal was just to get the main idea of what was being said. What's the general topic? What's the speaker trying to tell me? Practical use. When listening to a news clip, he'd only focus on who, what, and where, not all the details. Rewind and repeat, the power of the back button. If he missed something important, he learned to immediately rewind 10 to 15 seconds and listen again, maybe even 3 or 4 times. Often, after a few listens, the blur would become clearer. Why it works. This method trained his ear to pick up difficult sounds and connected speech. It taught him patience and showed him that he could understand. It just took more effort sometimes. This required perseverance in the face of initial difficulty. Diverse voices. Once easy podcasts felt comfortable, he started listening to different accents and native materials. He listened to British documentaries, American talk shows, and Australian travel vlogs. Practical use. He downloaded some BBC radio plays for British accents and watched short clips of stand-up comedy for fast, natural American English. Use transcripts, but don't rely on them. If a podcast or video had a transcript, David would listen once without it, for gist. Listen again, trying to catch details. Then, read the transcript while listening to see what he missed. Finally, listen again without the transcript. Why it works. This helped him connect the sounds he was hearing with the written words, improving both his listening and vocabulary. It required consistency to do all 4 steps for each short piece of audio. Tip 3. Finding his voice. The speaking adventure. Speaking was still terrifying. The fear of mistakes held him back. Embrace mistakes. They're your teachers. This was the hardest shift in mindset. David realized that everyone makes mistakes when learning. His goal wasn't to be perfect, but to be understood. New mindset. He started telling himself, a mistake is just a chance to learn. Better to speak badly than not speak at all. This took perseverance to overcome his shyness. Find a speaking partner, no pressure. He rejoined his online language exchange. This time, he picked a partner who was also learning his native language. This created a supportive environment where neither felt judged. Practical use. He and his partner agreed to talk for 20 minutes in English, then 20 minutes in his native language. This built trust and made the pressure lighter. Talk to yourself, out loud. This felt silly at first, but it was incredibly effective. David started narrating his daily activities in English aloud. Practical use. While making coffee, he'd say, "First, I'm taking the mug. Now I'm putting the coffee in. I need to boil the water." This trained his brain to think directly in English without translating. This required consistency and a willingness to feel a bit silly. Focus on fluency, not perfection. Instead of stopping to find the perfect word, David aimed to keep talking. He learned to use simpler words if necessary, or to rephrase. Why it works. This built his confidence and reduced his speaking hesitation. He realized communication was more important than perfect grammar in every sentence. Active vocabulary use. He picked a few new words or phrases from his listening practice and deliberately tried to use them in his conversations with his partner or in his self-talk. Practical use. If he heard "it's raining cats and dogs," he'd try to fit it into a sentence later that day, even if it felt forced. The unseen power of perseverance. There were still days when David felt like quitting, days when he listened to a podcast and understood almost nothing. days when his tongue felt impossibly heavy during a conversation. But now, instead of giving up, he remembered his why. He thought about the joy of being understood, the excitement of new discoveries, the freedom of communication. He remembered the 15-minute rule and forced himself to do something, even if it was just listening to a simple song. He remembered Leo's words, "Mistakes are gold." He remembered the feeling of accomplishment after finally understanding a difficult sentence. Perseverance wasn't about being strong all the time. It was about getting back up after every fall. It was about trusting that tiny, consistent steps would eventually lead to big leaps. It was about knowing that progress isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it feels like a plateau, or even a step backward, before surging forward again. The payoff. A world opened up. Months turned into a year. David was no longer just passing his C1 tests. He was living English. During a backpacking trip to Thailand, he found himself effortlessly negotiating prices in a night market, laughing at jokes told by other travelers, and even helping a lost tourist find their way using clear, confident English. He watched a British football match in a local pub and, to his astonishment, understood the commentators and the banter between the fans. The blurry mumble had transformed into clear, understandable words. His hesitant tongue now moved freely, expressing his thoughts and feelings. David realized that his success wasn't just about the methods he used. It was about the simple, powerful act of not giving up. It was about consistency, showing up for his language every single day, even when he didn't feel like it. It was about perseverance, pushing through the moments of doubt and frustration, knowing that every effort, no matter how small, was bringing him closer to his dream. His English wasn't perfect, and he knew it never would be. But it was his, and it was alive, connecting him to the world he'd always dreamt of exploring.